Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 21, Plans. After leaving the bookstore, Adrian and Summer ended their trip by going around the market, shopping for random daily necessities before finding a nice restaurant where they had dinner, and then after a quiet stroll around a local park, they returned back to the hotel. In a way, it was like they were on a date or something, especially with Summer's shooting him thankful glasses every once in a while. Yup, saving her mother was worth it. However, he only did that to satisfy his curiosity. So after a busy day, they finally stepped back into the hotel at 9 p.m. The first thing Adrian did was to ask about Logan, but the receptionist who kept shooting him glares of disgust only told him that Logan hadn't come since last night. It was as if the guy seemed to have completely vanished out of the face of the earth, and with him the chance to correct the staff's misunderstanding anytime soon. Well, at least the staff seemed to have agreed to stop bothering him and decided it was better to satisfy their sense of vanity by giving him glares of disgust. They were probably thinking that it was not worth it, lest he said something to Miss Red Oak and caused them to get fired. Whatever, sighing, he could only hold Miss Red Oak's hand and guide her upstairs. So, what's the plan for the night? Summer asked with clear hesitation after they reached the room and she let go of his hand. Go take a shower, he sighed. It is still early, and I need to explain a few things to you, he said, noticing the book stack on the table next to the door. They have been delivered before their return. That bookshop, despite being very pricey, was as efficient as ever. Okay, Summer, who seemed to have noticed the book, nodded and then hurried to the bathroom. Adrian sighed. He knew that she felt somehow lost. Now that her mother was cured, she began to think about her situation. She was wondering about her place in this world after his father literally sold her. It would take her some time to settle down. Wait, we know psychology now. 3 PhDs from the Third Imperial University. I have one too. I regret wasting time on this shit though. Not really, it is very useful for fooling people into thinking that we know what the fuck we are doing. Yeah, I know. Adrian shook his head to remove the distracting thoughts as he slowly approached the books. Unwrapping them, he gave each a quick flip to review their contents. Although those were newer editions than the one he knew from a few years ago, there didn't seem to be a lot of differences except for some new content that was very familiar to him. He was the one who discovered those. Of course, they were published using a pseudonym back then, his father insisted, fearing that some people might try to harm him if he stood out too much, like that ever helped. He sighed. Grabbing the few textbooks he thought Summer would need first, he headed to the couch at the center of the living room where he placed them on the coffee table, then taking some stationery from a random drawer, he began to write notes and stick it in them. He didn't know how much it took, but by the time he finished, he finally looked up and noticed that Summer, who was dressed in white pajamas that really suited her, was sitting with crossed legs on the couch across from him, absent-mindedly watching him work. Finished already? He asked. Ah, yeah, it had been an hour, she nodded, blushing a little as she avoided his gaze. For some reason he looked super handsome when he was all focused up, she couldn't help getting a little mesmerized by him. Oh, he really didn't notice the time passing. Come here then, he said, gesturing her to come next to him by patting the couch. She nodded, then slowly approached and sat next to him, curiously looking at the stuff in front of him. From now on, this will be the course you will need to follow to study magic. Do not attempt to do any spells before you finish the first few books, follow the index I created here, you can ignore everything else for now. He said, pointing to the books and to paper filled with notes and page numbers in order. Ah, you want me to read all those? She frowned. That was a big stack. 3 times larger than the books they used in school. Don't you want to be a magician? He asked. But aren't there too many? She asked. Those are just the beginning. He spat. The basics. Once you finish, I will give you a blueprint for your first circuit. He said as he stood up. Oh, and if you were to follow all of this, I think we can manage to get you an acceptance letter to the magical university. He added. Really? Summer looked at him and asked. The results for the magical university were already out. Yeah, the magical families had their own quota that were separated, he said. His father would probably get one for him. I will not help slackers though. He warned. I understand, she said as he bit her lip. Start working then. I will go take a shower when I return. We will see if you have any questions. He said dismissively. Ah, okay, Summer nodded. Watching her take the first book, Adrian nodded and then hurried to the bathroom. Those books were in fact a little too much for someone her age, as even first-year magical university students would struggle with them. But was a kind of test for her. If she surrendered, then he would just find her some good magic legacy and let her study it on her own. On the other hand, if she managed to comprehend the stuff, this would mean that his guess was right, and this girl was a genius who was worth nurturing. Finishing with his shower rather quickly, he put on some new pajamas and then headed to the living room. Summer was no longer on the couch but sitting cross-legged on the wool carpet on the floor. Around her, all the books were open as she was fully engrossed in studying them. It was to a degree that she completely failed to notice him. He could feel it. She was using her mana to observe the meridians inside of her body and compare them to the diagrams in the books. This girl was gifted, but how gifted, remained to be seen. Could it measure to the guys he trained before? Ah, right. He paused as he remembered some important thing. He almost forgot about them. In the last year before the accident, he bought some orphans to use as lab rats for his magic. 5 boys and 5 girls to be exact. They all had blocked meridians and he got them for real cheap through some dark channels. After the incident, the soul that was left in this body never heard about them. He needed to ask his father about them. Those guys, without knowing a thing as he utilized some very evil hypnosis techniques on them, were living experiments of some of the wildest thoughts he had at that time. Damn, we were really evil back then. We were a kid. Yup, an evil kid. If not for the accident we would have probably been killed in a few years. Yeah, Adrian sighed. He was both curious about what happened to those guys, and also a little worried about them, as some of the experiments had some fatal flaws. He could tell that now that he had much broader knowledge of how magic worked. Back then he was on the right track, but he had no supercomputer to simulate things for him. He shook his head and decided to leave this matter to the morning. He should probably go give his father a visit anyway. Hopefully, the family had already reached a decision regarding his old stuff anyway. With that thought, he just grabbed the cookbook he bought this afternoon, took a seat on the bed and then began to flip through it. This handwritten book didn't have an author, and it wasn't a book exactly, but some kind of a diary recording various ways to cook monsters. There were a few commentaries here and there too, clearly by different people who tried things from it. The reason he wanted to read this was simple. He had a theory that he quickly confirmed by searching a little in the encyclopedia. In this world, it was common knowledge that people couldn't eat magical monsters. It was because the overwhelmingly concentrated mana would cause a normal human's meridians and veins to explode. Many tried to remedy this, but in the end, it was futile. Even if the meat were to be processed by magic and made somehow safe, the processing made the mana in them too broken to be any better than the one a person can get from the air with a good breathing technique. And after all of that, it tasted like shit. That's why at the moment, those things were only being used as emergency rations for soldiers or to create shady mana supplements to scam the public. In the world I was in, we ate demonic monsters' meat all the time. It is not good as dragon meat, but not bad with soul wine. We did too, but it was the only thing we had, other than eating each other. I think it has something to do with the body's physique. Thankfully we didn't have such things in the world I was in. Do you think that Summer would be able to eat that? Yes, it is possible. They did say her ancestor was some kind of a barbarian, and the inverted meridians would make sense in such a case. If someone were to apply some technique while eating, they would definitely be able to rapidly consume the Rengading mana in the meat safely. Interesting theory. Look at the book. It says here that magical monsters can eat others because of their special thick veins. Look at the diagram. Don't you think they resemble Summer's mother's? Oh, kinda, but a human's veins are not thick enough. We need to make a test. Yes, then it is settled. Maybe I can finally show you guys my real skills as a cook. A cook. One has to learn many skills to capture a lowly's heart. Ellipsis. Sorry I asked. Ignoring his random thoughts, Adrian slowly flipped through the book and confirmed his guesses. Although Summer's meridians and her mother's veins didn't resemble that of the monsters, they had very similar characteristics. Interesting. After reading for a while and deciding to secure some meat to test one of the promising recipes, Adrian finally yawned and decided to surrender to sleep. Ellipsis. He woke up as the morning sun hit his face. Sitting up and stretching up, he looked to his side, where Summer was in deep sleep, hugging a pillow. He felt it when she climbed onto the bed an hour ago. She must have spent the entire night studying. Good girl. Yup, pretty hard working. We should take care of her. Only if she was a bit younger. You wanna go to prison that badly? If it is JUVY, I am all in. Fuck, Sorry I asked. Deciding to not wake Summer up, Adrian sneaked out of the bed into the bathroom where he took a quick shower, brushed his teeth then found something to wear. Thankfully, Summer chose quite a few nice casual suits for him matching them up, so he didn't really have to think about that. None of his myriad spirit fragments had any fashion sense for some reason. Maybe this was not required in their worlds to survive. I have a fashion sense. You call that shady uncle garb a fashion? In a certain sense. Pooey. Adrian shook his head as he got dressed, then after checking on Summer one last time, he left her a note that he would return in the evening and then left the suite. As soon as he reached the lobby, he bumped into that manager. Dixon. Adrian. Yes. Adrian, who was planning to leave, silently turned and asked. Do you know how long Lady Red Oak plans to stay here? Dixon asked. Nope, what does it matter to you, the presidential suite is always on reserve anyway. Adrian said. Just asking for logistical reasons, Dixon said, making Adrian realize that this guy was planning to try and get to know Lady Red Oak. I think Logan should take care of those, Adrian said casually. Is he back? No, Dixon frowned. Is the lady still asleep? He asked again. Aha, Adrian nodded casually as he eyed Dixon's expression. Do you need anything from her? Is he planning to seduce our wife? Kill him, kill, let's watch and see. Okay, no, just wondering since she didn't order breakfast yet, Dixon replied casually. Where are you going this early in the morning anyway? He quickly asked, changing the subject as he inspected Adrian's new suit with a sense of jealousy. He could easily tell what brand it was, and it cost 10 times his annual salary. Doing errands, Adrian spat as he adjusted his cuff, allowing the expensive watch he was wearing to slip a little. Satisfying a lady takes a lot, he added with a smirk as he quickly walked away, leaving Dixon and the few hotel employees foaming with jealousy. Dixon could only clench his fist as he watched Adrian go. Why did that lady choose the bum over him? Damn it, just you wait. Ellipsis. Not caring what Dixon was planning to do, Adrian quickly left the hotel and then hailed a taxi. The magical tower, he told the driver. Yes sir. The driver, who was not very talkative, nodded then hurriedly drove away. They reached the tower 15 minutes later, where Adrian paid the man and then quickly stepped down. Unlike the previous day when this place was bustling with people, it was mostly empty this morning. All the tests were over the previous day. Adrian quickly headed to the door where a new guard was in place. Before the guard could ask, Adrian directly flashed his newly acquired family card and walked straight in. He didn't even bother to stop at the reception office, choosing to directly head up to his father's office. Young Master Adrian, the secretary quickly greeted him as soon as he walked in. She was a slim middle-aged woman who was dressed in professional OL attire and wore narrow glasses. Is my father available? Adrian asked, noticing the magical energy on the woman's meridians. She was strong, about 5th circuit level. Yes, he is with young Master Daniel, please walk right in. She said as her eyes sparkled. I know that look, she is considering US for her daughter. Is her daughter a lowly? No idea, now shut the fuck up. That lowly joke is getting lame, you know. I am not joking. Ellipsis. Adrian smiled friendly at the secretary as he knocked at the door and then walked straight in. Adrian, Maverick, who was frowning as he discussed something with Donald, brightened up and smiled as soon as his favorite son walked in. Hi Dad, hi Donald. Adrian gave a quick greeting as he walked in, ignoring his half-brother's jealous glares. Like I told you, continue with the investigation and fill me in if you find anything. Maverick quickly closed the folder on his folder and gave it to Donald. You may leave, he said. Yes, Father. Donald grabbed the folder and then quickly turned to leave, not forgetting to glare at Adrian, who casually took a seat on the couch beside the desk. If he were to do the same, his father would definitely scold him. Damn it. Gushing his teeth, he walked out. Is there some kind of a problem? Adrian asked as he reached for the crystal candy jar his father kept on his desk and took a few, then popped them in his mouth. Nah, just some demonic beast that managed to sneak into the city due to a temporary malfunction in the grid, Maverick said. I already sent Logan to track it, but I think someone sabotaged the grid on purpose, so I made Donald launch an investigation. He explained. Oh, that's why that guy is nowhere to be seen. Do you need anything from him? Maverick asked. Nah, just some stupid stuff, Adrian said as he popped a candy in his mouth. Those things were good. No wonder his father keeps them in his office. He might be into lolies too. Shut up. Just shut the fuck up. He got a point though. We need to be wary. Yeah, lest he would leave none for us. You are hopeless. Did you like my gift? Maverick, totally unaware of the very disrespectful thoughts his son was having, relaxed in his seat and asked with a knowing smile. Yeah, thank you, Daddy. You really know my taste, Adrian smirked. She is a little too spicy, but she is not bad at all. She was the one who chose this suit for me, he added as he adjusted his jacket. Not bad, Maverick nodded as he inspected his son. At least the girl knew her role. I wanted to get the other one called Sophie too, but her father literally threw your Uncle Logan out of the door, nearly breaking his leg. He sighed. Who knew that the guy was a damn hidden expert? Oh, Adrian nodded. He had no idea, but since Sophie's family ran a traditional pharmacy, this was not a big surprise. Did the family make their decision? He asked to change the subject. Ah, yes, the assessment is over and your method is really genuine. Maverick nodded. Unfortunately those guys didn't plan to give up their benefits, he shook his head. So they will not give me back my properties. Adrian frowned. Kinda, you must know that some of your properties and patents were highly sought after. Many of the new technologies are built around them and a lot of money has already been invested. Maverick said. Many parties are involved, including some of the high elders. And, Adrian frowned. After a lot of deliberations and arguing they finally decided to unify all the companies that were built on your intellectual properties. They will give you 30% of that new company while they will split the rest. Maverick sighed. And this includes your grandfather giving up his 5% share. Oh, Adrian paused. I don't mind, as soon as I can keep researching. He said after a quick thought. Most of the patents are already old news for him. He could already think of better ones, and the 30% was not a little at all. That's the spirit, Maverick nodded. The companies would be all unified under Chestnut Technology, which was the original company I created to manage your patents. I am already the chairman there so the transition would be quick, it should all finish in a week or so. Oh, what position do you plan to give me? Adrian asked. As promised, a good place with not a lot of responsibilities. How about the head of one of the research labs? You will have all kinds of researchers working under you and you only have to give them the general direction and then show up once in a while to take all the credit. Oh, it is perfect. Adrian smiled. You can head there tomorrow and talk to the acting CEO, it is someone you know. Maverick said as he opened a drawer, took some documents, and threw them to his son. They were a security card, some background info, and some other shared ownership proofs. Really who? Adrian asked as he gave the document a fleeting look. Her name is Hazel, she was one of your maids before the accident. Maverick said. Ah, Adrian was taken aback as he noticed the girl's photo on one of the documents that outlined the company's command structure. That brown-haired, something years old, girl was one of the few he wanted to ask his father about. I took her in back then and made her work as an assistant secretary, Maverick said, noticing his son's surprise. Back then I had a lot on my hands, so I promoted her to a CEO on a whim, thinking that she was yours anyway. The company was only responsible for managing patents and was not anything important. I didn't expect her to actively grow the company's reach, build research labs, and make it one of the hottest startups. Maverick explained. Oh, Adrian nodded as he remembered the pretty and serious girl who was only a few years older than him. What happened to the other servants? Adrian asked. You mean the other 5 you bought yourself? Yeah, Adrian nodded. Other than the 6, there were some other servants but those were his father's men to begin with. To tell the truth I have no idea since they were all nulls, Maverick said. Some were laid off, others were taken in by the elders. Are they important? Maverick asked with a frown. Just wondering, they might know something about the accident back then, Adrian lied. His experiments on those kids were borderline forbidden magic, they had no idea they were in, and he didn't plan to tell anyone. We already questioned them and, despite having some gaps in their memories, they knew nothing, but I guess I will ask around for you. Maverick said casually. Please do. Adrian nodded. What about my old mansion? He asked. Sadly had already changed ownership a few times and almost all your labs there had been dismantled. Maverick sighed. The family already agreed to pay you its price, so feel free to get a new one. Ah, I see, Adrian nodded. Is there anything else? Maverick asked, noticing his son's gestation. Ah, yeah, I have been wondering if I can get an acceptance letter for the magical university. You are my son, that's a given. Maverick spat. With Adrian's old accomplishments, it would be stupid not to give him a seat in the university. In fact, the professors should be the ones giving him their seats, but that would be too eye-catching. Not for me, but for Summer, Adrian said. Oh, son, Maverick sighed as he looked his son in the eye. You should keep in mind not to get too attached, a toy is a toy. He told him. Although this sounded a little disrespectful and cruel, it was a fact in the High Magician Society. Nulls were just toys. It is not that, Adrian explained. He didn't like his father's attitude. Since Summer had accepted him, he had already decided that she was his, and he was going to take care of her no matter what. I just want to see if I can make her a magician, so I made a bet with her. If she can become a level 1 before university classes start, I will let her enroll. Adrian explained, making an excuse on the fly. Oh, in 2 months. Maverick frowned. It is a challenge for both her and me. She is not a complete null, and only suffers from a rare condition that got me interested. Adrian explained. I think this would be a chance for me to discover something new. He didn't lie there. Oh, Maverick smiled and nodded. Then you can give her that chance. I will reserve a quota for you. He said. His father, the patriarch, had already ordered that as long as it didn't involve forbidden magic, Adrian's experiments must all be accommodated. Yup, after that new circuit, he introduced, most of the old geezers in the family were supporting him to do whatever he wanted. Cool, Adrian nodded. Just don't tell your brothers, Maverick added. Donald had to really work hard and accomplish a lot of missions for the family to get his quota back then. Naturally, Adrian nodded. Good, Maverick said. Now, I want to talk to you regarding the family missions. He finally said. Ah, right, there are those. Adrian remembered. For heirs, usually after their first assessment, it was natural for them to go on missions to gather merits for their next assessment. Usually, after the first assessment, an heir would be given a military command and sent to the frontier to fight demonic beasts, Maverick said. Since you failed the first assessment, you didn't have the chance to participate in those, he explained. So now I have to? Adrian asked. For you, it is not necessary as you have already achieved a rank 0. Maverick couldn't help but smile proudly remembering his son's achievements, but since it was agreed on to hide this, you will need to go on some missions every now and then. Oh, Adrian nodded, he didn't mind. Then what should I do? 2 things, the first is to start working on your physique, go to the gym, and manage to get your body in shape in a month or so, Maverick said. The missions were usually done on foot in the primitive jungles, so a fit body was a must no matter what. Oh, okay, Adrian nodded. Although he had a good foundation thanks to working in the hotel all those years, he still needed some work and he planned to fix up his body anyway. The second is to assemble your guardian team. Maverick said. The family would allow you to choose some of the family's rank 1 and 2 knights. Next week, I will accompany you to the family base to get done with this. Ah, okay, Adrian said. Every heir in the family had their own unit composed of 8 individuals who not only helped him complete the missions but were also his most trusted agents and secret guards. They were the core for all of his future growth. Usually, they would be of the same age as the heir and would train alongside him to be his striking force. The family members should choose their men in a ceremony at the age of 12 and nurture them by exchanging some merits with techniques and elixirs for them. It was like investing his money into his own power. Logan, for example, was one of his father's original guardians, and as his father's rank rose up, he rose with him, getting promoted to a commanding position to control the new individuals who gradually filled the expanding team. Unfortunately, Adrian, who missed this chance due to failing his assessments, would have to start a little late, but this would not really bother him. He was confident that he could turn a rock into a magical monster, let alone make some brats decent knights. It just seemed like he would be very busy starting next week.